Alright, the Reds, it's the preview show. Liverpool v Fulham, Sunday, 12 o'clock. Bit of a crap kick-off time, that, isn't it? But we're going to talk about it anyway. Gareth Roberts, Johnny Milburn, Dan Morgan. There's plenty of sort of crisis talk that's gone on since getting beat by Red Star Belgrade. Obviously, that wasn't a great performance, wasn't a great result. And lots of people saying it being in the post, it being coming, and now's the time. The wheels are all going to fall off. However, the Reds are 11 games unbeaten in the Premier League. A win over Fulham will equal the club's best points return after 12 games in the modern era. Any victory will ensure Liverpool their best ever goal difference in the Premier League at this stage of a season, and a clean sheet secures the least number of goals ever conceded in the Premier League after a dozen matches by Liverpool. The Reds have won the last 4 against Fulham, but they haven't played them in the league since 2014. Fulham's record at Anfield in general is, to put none too fine a point on it, shite. They've played 33 times at Anfield. Liverpool have won 23, drawn 9 and lost just once. Fulham have only scored 19 goals in that time as well. So it all points towards a Liverpool win, which is exactly what we need, of course, and the odds are Liverpool are 9-1 on. The draw is 11-1. And Fulham are 33-1 to win at Anfield on Sunday. Now, lots of people always say when we have these conversations, you're tempting fate and all that, but it's all a load of bollocks, because the 22 lads who actually have a game of footy are not watching the Anfield preview show. I'm worried what I'm saying, you're saying, or Dan's saying. I don't think so, anyway.
Speak for yourself, lad.
Lallana might be watching. He's a bit of a fan by all accounts.
I mean, they've heard of it. Whether they're sitting down and watching this is another thing, but I mean, are you worried about this sort of crisis speak, Johnny, or are you still fairly upbeat and positive about how the Reds have done so far?
Yeah, I think this weekend will be interesting from the point of view that whatever happens this weekend, one group of fans will be able to say it proves them right. So if we smash these 5 or 6-0, this has been coming. There's been a group who've been saying this has been coming and somebody's going to get it. They'll be happy. We'll all be really, really happy. If we labour against a very, very poor Fulham side, they're one of the poorest promoted sides that have come into the league in a long time, and a team who traditionally, as you've just told us, Gareth, we've got a really good record against. If we labour against this team, it'll be a sign of this ongoing malaise. I think the way I'm looking at it is that this is a team that they've not yet kept a clean sheet this season. There's not much chance they're going to keep a clean sheet this weekend. Our defence is incredibly mean. So even when we have an off day, our defence is playing really well against good teams. So I'm expecting a reaction from Tuesday night, and I'm really, really confident that Liverpool will get a result. And I'll go one further, that I think if Mourinho can keep United's tails up from what was a really, really good result for them last night, then there's a good chance that we could go into this international break top of the league, and that opens up a whole world of possibilities. I just think the pressure that we're under because of how well City are doing, how well Chelsea are doing, how well Arsenal are doing, we're all beginning to be a little bit, we're regressing a little bit to the Liverpool of a couple of seasons ago, where we all got a bit grumpy about every small bump in the road. And I thought we'd matured past that last season. I thought as a crowd in the stadium, we were able to see out minor concerns, but it sounds like this week all of our sort of chickens have come home to roost a little bit. And I think we'll smash these at the weekend. It may not be the free-flowing football we had at the end of last season, but I'm absolutely convinced we'll comfortably beat one of the poorest teams in the country, and we'll take it from there. I'm not scared at all.
Fulham, as Johnny's saying, have conceded 29 in the league, more than any other club. Their current record in the league is that they're 20th position-wise. They've won 1, drawn 2, lost 8. And obviously Liverpool are unbeaten in the league. The last few games as well they've played as a little bit of a form guide for Fulham. Last time out they lost to Huddersfield. Before that they lost to Bournemouth. Before that they lost to Cardiff. Before that they lost 5-1 to Arsenal, and before that they lost 3-0 to Everton. So I mean, it's about context, really, isn't it? It's understandable some of the concerns that are happening around Liverpool in terms of midfield, not being quite right, the forward line not being quite right. But even if Everton's not quite right, you would expect a win here, wouldn't you? You
would. I mean, I think it's a bit of a no-win type of game, in that if you play well and you win, everyone says, well, what do you expect? You're playing Fulham in the shit. if you don't play well and you win, people are still niggling at it. If you don't win, you know, you can imagine the carnage after what we went through the other night as well. But what I don't really like the idea of these are the ideal opponents, if you like. I don't think anyone is ideal. And it's really, you know, I don't think it's a game of football. Yeah. They're going to come with a plan. I've heard people say, well, they haven't got the players to frustrate. Well, you can argue that Cardiff have got the players to frustrate and they lost 4-1. You know what I mean? They've got a load of alehouse players who want to play a deep line. Fulham might come with a different way. There's more than one way to try and frustrate a team. You know, they might want to frustrate us by just completely going over the top of us, for example, like Belgrade did the other night, and then trying to push the line back. So there's different ways to do it. I think what's crucial on Sunday, it's about what we do. Yeah. And my thing is that I want to see an angry Liverpool. I want to see a Liverpool that tells everyone that what happened the other night was in isolation and was in a vacuum. And I think a massive hindrance to that is the kick-off time and the circumstances around the game being played at 12 o'clock on a Sunday, because it doesn't really allow for the crowd to be angry with the players if they are. It doesn't really allow for any type of feverish atmosphere, given that it's midday the day after, you know. Yeah. A lot of people might have been out or had a drink the night before, so that does play a part. I don't think we can argue it doesn't, but I think a lot of context of Sunday now forms part of what happened the other night against Belgrade, so there has to be a follow-on from that, there has to be a knock-on from it. Hope it's the positive one.
I mean, you'd expect, wouldn't you, a reaction from the players? You'd expect them to be hurt and stung by, you know, the performance and the result, but also the reaction to it as well. You know, you'd expect, like, you know, teacups in the dressing room afterwards and all that kind of thing. You would expect that when they've sat down and done the analysis, Klopp's tore shreds off them, no matter what he's saying in public, because they deserve it, didn't they, the other night?
Johnny's point before is a really good one about how we were managing ourselves through games as a crowd, and that kind of collective feeling of that throughout last season. I don't think it's unreasonable now for us to be asking a little bit more from the players. Yeah. But I don't just mean us as a fan base. You look at every post-match interview Klopp's doing, he's saying, I'm telling them, I need more from them, particularly in attacking situations. I need them to be better. I'm asking them to be better. I want them to be better. He says the other night in the tunnel after Belgrade, not even at his press conference, he says in the tunnel, I think they're in with the analysts now already. So that goes to show that I would never want us to put pressure on our own players. I would never want them to feel like they're in that horrible Everton environment that we've seen down the years. But at the same time, I don't think it's unreasonable for us to want and kind of expect a couple of them now to step up to the fore, and for them as a group to take responsibility for what's going on. I just think that element of it has to feed into the whole collective thing, and I don't think we're doing much wrong. I don't think a case of everything that's gone on this season culminated in what happened against Belgrade. I don't think it was that. I think it's just the fact that the other night we had one, and in certain situations we're not getting things right, and I think we're not taking enough risks, is my thing.
Yeah, it was conservative the other night.
I think a lot of it's conservative. I think we had something like 6 take-ons, and I think what you see a lot of last season is them saying, we're going to take loads of risks in this game. It might not come off all the time, but stay with us, because in 2-3 moves time it'll be there, and that's when we'll gain your trust, if you like, as a fan base. And there's a bit of give and take with that. We just need to obviously have the trust and the faith in them continued.
That's a really good point. I think contrasting, and it's wrong to do this, but I watched a bit of Man City this week, and what they appear to be, the big contrast between them and us at the moment appears to be that we're getting on the edge of the box and we are slashing at shots first time, not great chances, we're not creating absolute Kirkwood chances. They appear to have the composure to have 3 or 4 fellas in their box, and they'll beat a man in the box, or they'll pass a short pass in the box, and they're knocking it round inside the 18 until they've dragged the defence all over the place, until actually it's just a pass into the net. And what we're doing is we're getting ourselves in a situation where we've still got a back 4 to beat, and we're trying to snatch at a shot. And I just think if we're a bit more composed, and individual players in the front three, Salah, Mane, instead of like trying to just bingo it when there's a wall of men in front of you, but just take a couple more seconds, lay it off, But just drag them out, create the space, create the chance, allow third man run, allow us just flood the box. The chances will come, but we just appear to be putting ourselves under so much pressure to score a worldie. You know, that appears to, that's a massive difference between the two sides.
I know this isn't a review of Belgrade, but there's 2 times in the first 5 minutes the other night where we go long in the channels and it works. We get in on one of them. Now, that type of pragmatism again is missing, like Johnny says. If you're getting beat in that midline, if they're feeding off second balls because the forward's backing in or whatever, just eclipse it. Just work it out during the game, and then your midfielders can join in and stuff like that. It seems like we're not making those collective decisions. And you said you watched a bit of City the other day. After our game, I watched a bit of Barca, and this isn't hyperbole or nostalgia in any way, but when you watch Suarez again in the flesh, you realise just how much of his whole game is about taking chances.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
About 70-30 is not even in his favour, playing a 1-2 off the defender's arse, or being alive to something that is none of his business. And when you look at things like that, that's when you realise where it's kind of missing for us in that conservative kind of way, like you say.
Okay, well, there's a new feature now on this show, or newish. We've had one before, but it's inside the Anfield wrap, and the idea is here that we throw a few questions at one of the contributors and see what comes out at the end. And this time around, it's Kev Walsh.
Favourite away ground, Craven Cottage, Fulham. Now, right there on the Thames, always a good day out. Far enough away so you can be well oiled by the time you get there, and plenty of places around the ground you can have a good bevy at too. And 9 times out of 10, Liverpool will get a result there, so always a bonus. Gary McAllister, 2001, Goodison. No better feeling than doing that to them there. Manny, 90+4, the other year, also gets an honourable mention, but any goal that breaks Evertonian heart is up there for me. The grey 89-90 kit, which was the last one we won the league in. Johnny Barnes in that one, what a man. 2 here, Mark Viduka from Leeds. Fuck him after them 4 goals in us at the 4-3. What a nightmare that was in the away end that day. And an honourable mention to Richard Dunn, one of the worst centre-halves you'll ever see play football, and obviously played for Everton as well, so straight in the bin for them too for me. Pre-match bevy for us is the Stanley. Well, it's now called the Glenbuck Hotel on the corner Sleepers Hill. Back room up at the back on the bottle bar, so if anyone wants to come in, feel free to get me a bevy. Richard Dunn, Everton, Man City, and whoever else he played for, shite for all of them. I've seen Mike Neville in some funny states as well, but again, the more drunken stories get, the less you can broadcast them, I suppose. So come and see me in the Stanley and I'll tell you them then.
Nice one to Kev there. There'll be plenty more of them. Basically, the idea is every time we're previewing a home game, there'll be an inside tour. And when we do an away one, well, you know by now that we went to all the away grounds and we spoke to fans of the opposition team, so that'll continue. All right then, the Liverpool team then. Neil is to come, by the way. He'll be talking a lot more about what Fulham might do, but before that we're going to talk about what Liverpool might do. And there's obviously a few things that sort of matters arising, if you like, out of Red Star in terms of the team. So we've seen Trent obviously hooked at half time. Lovren missed out through sickness, so we're not quite sure whether he'll be available for the weekend. But do you think if he is to start us off, that he starts and Gomez is on the right and Trent drops out, or do we think because it's likely to be a match that Liverpool have all the possession and all the ball, you want Trent pushing forward perhaps? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think Trent did have a poor game the other night by his standards. We've got to remember that Trent's only just turned 20. He's still a young lad, still finding his feet, and the levels he's reached, we know he's a good player. And I don't think 1 or 2 bad performances below par means that we write him off. And I think this could be a really good game for him to play his way back into form. I don't expect him to be under huge pressure down his side, and I think giving him the chance to try and redeem himself, I think would make a lot of sense. I'd like to see Gomez continue at centre half. I think he's, alongside Van Dijk, been one of our most consistent players so far this season. So that from a defensive point of view, and you've got to put Andy Rowe in here, the alternative. I think if we didn't have an international break, it might be an opportunity to rest him and put Moreno in. But given that they're going to international duty, fuck them. We want them playing for us. We want them to play to the strongest this weekend.
Lots of questions as well about the midfield, Dan. Obviously, Shaqiri available now because, you know, he didn't travel in the week because of the political climate and the fact that he'd done what he'd done, and we all know that story. But quietly, he's been really effective for Liverpool. When you look at the stats, he's produced a goal and 4 assists in his last 6 weeks, despite only starting one of those matches. And this stat's really mad. He's scored or assisted 62% of Liverpool's goals when he's on the pitch. So that kind of feels like to me that he should definitely be on the pitch, and especially for a game like this.
There'll be a bit clamour for him, obviously, because he doesn't play. I think in all of what's happened in the past week, I think the manager's slightly got to hold his hands up a little bit, in that if he knows he's not taking Shaqiri to Belgrade, then there's an argument to play him at Arsenal and put Fabinho in the other night, and he probably knows that. And it's all good us sitting here and playing footy manager to a degree, but he's got to make them calls, and he can only use that going forward now. So wouldn't surprise me if he plays. I think there's a lot of decisions he's got to be making at the moment, the manager. I think going back to the back four, I think a lot of what happens the other night is based around the fact that not only does he want to take Trent out and manage his development a little bit more, but I think also we're maybe overlooking how much he wants Gomez at right back currently. And I think there's a few reasons for that. I think his direct passing that I mention a lot is really good. And I think it is something that can get us on the front foot in games. But
he
also
likes Lovren as well. The manager likes Lovren. Whether people like him or not, the manager likes him, doesn't he?
We talked a lot of this on the review yesterday, and it was really good. Give it a listen if anyone subscribes. But also, he likes Lovren, but I think it's the reason Matip plays as well, in that if he thinks, if I can't rely on Lovren, I've got to try and get this lad games, because he might have to play if I'm playing Gomez right back. And I think the other thing with Gomez as well is that he can come over in a 3 and Robertson can go. Now, if we're talking about whatever midfield we're playing, looking isolated, looking flat, looking turned over in them transitions all the time, there's times last season when we look like we've got 6 men in midfield, and that's because we're pushing 1, 2 full-backs on. We've got someone dropping back in. I think the plan is to spring Robertson, but also have that cover coming the other side. So I think it's something he's wanted to do for a while in terms of that. What's also interesting as well about the other night is that Mane does the second half completely right wing, right touch line, chalk on your boots. Now, whether he asks one of them to do another job like that, I think there's a question mark around for Firmino as well. Yeah. But the midfield 3 for me, I think, look, for me, if Jordan Henderson's fit, he should play. That's my thing. That's the first thing I want to see. I think you've got an argument that you can take Milner out, because I think both mentally and physically he looks a bit tired at the minute in terms of where his passing's going, and is this some of his decision making?
He's not available, apparently.
Is he not available? Yeah. Okay. Wijnaldum can go again. I think he gets away with one a little bit the other night, but he's been good this season. He can go again. It feels like his type of game, Fulham at home. And then any one for me of Fabinho, Keita. If Keita's fit, I'd play him, to be honest.
Well, Keita was going to be the next thing I was going to bring up, really. I mean, you know, lots and lots of chat about the midfield, the effectiveness or not of it. You know, it's worth remembering that we spent 50-odd million on this lad, and at some point, I know he's been disrupted with injury and things like that, but he's got to start proving that he was worth the effort, really, hasn't he? And, you know, he's shown in flashes what he's about, but he's probably not being the 50 million quid star. He's certainly not sort of, you know, Paul Joyce wrote a piece in the Times today, a good piece, if anyone subscribes to the Times, have a read of it. And he was saying in that, you know, last season we were all sitting watching YouTube clips of Keita, of what he was doing in the Bundesliga, and we were all rubbing our hands. He hasn't done that here yet. You know, he's maybe taking some time to acclimatise, but a game like this, if he is fit and he's thrown in, should be one he can shine in, really. Yeah,
well, he made the bench tonight, didn't he? Which I know he didn't get on, but at least he's made the bench. So hopefully he's coming back to some form of fitness after his little breakout. I think we shouldn't hit the panic button just yet. I think both him and Fabinho, they've both come. I think they're both limited from a language perspective, and we shouldn't underestimate the effect that can have in terms of just cohesion. And I see sometimes Klopp on the touchline, giving his instructions when he's putting on a sub, and he's animating, he's saying all these things, and I'm thinking, I don't know whether I'd understand that. So it must be hard for somebody who English is not their first language. So I'd like to think they'll come good. I think because we've had Mane and because we've had Salah be revelations instantly, I think we all think now that transfers are just an instant fix, and traditionally they're not, are they? Most transfers take a good 9-12 months for somebody to start see the best form of them, I think. So I'd like to see Keita in. I think it's again another game where I think we should be the superior side, so we should be able to show what he's about. I think there's a risk that we dine out a little bit on Keita's turn against Palace away, don't we, when he sent Townsend for the pint of milk. I think he's got to show a little bit more of that. He's got to show us the quality and the class that we saw on YouTube last season. I'd throw Fabinho back in personally as well. I think you don't want him sat at home for 2 weeks sulking and mulling over that Arsenal game.
Just when he thought he was getting in, sort of.
Yeah. I'd be inclined, if he's trained well this week and he's responded well to the manager, I'd really like to see him given another chance. So, and back to your point, I really would be interested in seeing us maybe throwing Shaqiri in the midfield and going similar to last game of the season, where we played with effectively 4 attacking players on the pitch. Blow these away and then rest legs.
Well, the Firmino thing, final point here before I do predictions, just wanted to touch on that, mainly because I wrote what I thought was a decent piece, so, give that a read. But when I was researching Firmino and his performances this season and last, some of the stats that come out of that really aren't great, if I'm being honest with you. It's only 1 goal in 10 games currently. For Liverpool as well. Against Arsenal, he didn't have a single shot. Against Red Star, it was the same. And he's also not made a single tackle in his last 4 Premier League games, which is slightly worrying as well.
It's mad, that, because he was like one of the highest tacklers in the team.
That's what I mean. So something's definitely changed with him. Lots of people talking about his position being tweaked a little bit. But also performance-wise, we're just not getting it out of him. I mean, he's big chances as well. He's missed 5 this season already in the Premier League. He only missed 7 all of last season in the Premier League, so there's definitely been a drop-off. I think the problem, Dan, is that you've seen it the other night, he starts Sturridge, but already by half-time he's gone, well, that hasn't worked, and I've got to put Firmino back on here.
Yeah, the Sturridge-Lallana thing the other night, you can imagine, could be a little bit watershed for him, in that if he thinks it's too dangerous to start these in a game, because if it doesn't go our way, they're the first ones you look at. In terms of, not only in terms of getting off, but in terms of, if you're looking at your bench, the two you'd really considering getting on if you're chasing a game, Sturridge and Lallana, for in their own context. Firmino, I think you can argue that Firmino suffers most when the team's not playing well, or when the team's not gelling and not cohesive. I think by virtue of how much he does and how much we place on him in this system, if it's not all gelling and coming together, I think there's an argument that he looks a lot worse than maybe what he is sometimes. And there is a thing in terms of how sharp he looks. I think that's definitely a thing. I don't think he looks on it as much as I've seen. But what I would say with that as well is some of the things that he does really well, and we've come to attach to him as a player, we're not doing as a team for him. We're not getting the ball into him in them right areas. We haven't got those triangles of play on either side that he loves to get involved in. And that's what I said before, in terms of doing the right things on the pitch, that can spring players like that into life, and it's the same for all of them to an extent. But maybe there's an element here where the manager maybe just has to keep his nerve a little bit and say, well, the Sturridge thing, okay, he might need a rest, but the Sturridge thing might not work in that scenario. Going Salah through the middle might not work in that scenario. As long as he's okay physically, I think he's the one who I would say go to the well for, carry on going and play your way into it, because he's the one I trust the most to do that, to be honest.
Yeah, I think he's been noticeably deeper though, I think, in terms of the position he picks up on the pitch. Your point's absolutely spot on. I think when you think about the best, when our attacking three were sort of absolutely at their most powerful last season, they were close together and they were setting things up for each other. And I've got this real sense that they're further apart on the pitch and there's less instinct to head up and look out for each other this season. And I think they're all under individual pressure to score goals, and they're maybe trying to create chances or go for chances that aren't really there, rather than maybe last season, because there was goals out coming everywhere, they were quite happy to share them around, and you could look up and they would roll a simple ball in and for better chances. And I do think that's a motif of this season. And if it was that easy, I'm sure it would have been fixed probably weeks ago. But I think what I've seen a lot this season is Firmino appears to sort of becoming deeper and deeper and deeper, picking the ball up deep, and that's admirable stuff to be doing, because it needs to be done at times, but it is sacrificing the attacking threat that he normally carries.
Okay, the Reds have won all 8 home games against promoted sides under Jurgen Klopp. They've scored 25 in those games, they've conceded only 3. They're also unbeaten in the last 26 Premier League home games, the longest run since 2009. So dead quick. Prediction, score?
6-0.
Go ahead.
It's right.
Dan?
Didn't see that, you know.
No, I didn't see that one coming.
3-1.
I'll say 3-0. We're going to end the show today with Neil. He's got loads of information for you about Fulham, what they might do and what their team might be. That has been the preview show.
We often do this, and I can at least put an argument together as to what I expect the opposition 11 to do. And I can always sort of feel as though I can say, well, this is what I think Liverpool will do with a certain amount of conviction. Fulham are really tricky, really tricky. No side has rotated, and I say rotated, I'll use that word loosely, dropped people, changed, looked to find a way forward in the bottom half of the table as much as Fulham. It isn't a rotation because it isn't about sorting legs out. It's a manager searching for his best 11, and we're now 12 games in, and there's an argument that he still hasn't found it. He was making half-time substitutions as Fulham fell to a 1-0 defeat at Huddersfield on Monday night. Take centre-half as an example. I think at Anfield he'll go with Odoi and Le Marchand, but I think there's every chance Alfie Mawson gets himself a go. There's a chance that Callum Chambers could find himself in there as well. Fosu Mensah at right back, maybe it'll be Callum Chambers at right back. I'd expect Sessegnon to be playing at left back there, but he's, I think he's got someone else he'd like to use there, but he's injured at the minute, Joe Bryan. In goal, it could be Fabry, it could be Rico. He's changed that throughout the course of the season as well. And when you haven't got that consistency in that back five, and certainly in this little 3 triangle here, it tells the story as to why Fulham have struggled to the extent to which they have. Going into midfield, I think that Seri will start. I'd expect Tom Kearney to start as well. He was very important for Fulham last season. And I expect the third place will probably be taken by Anguissa. He'll want those legs and that energy in there coming up against Liverpool. Moving forward into attack, I think he'd probably like to use Sessegnon further forward in this one. But I think it will be Schürrle, it will be Mitrovic, and we can say that with a lot of certainty. And I'd expect probably Vietto to play off this side. These are all good players. There's practically not a player I've named there, even those in defence who I wouldn't say were good players. But the manager hasn't yet found the way in which he's going to get the best out of them in this league. It's one thing to be able to play swashbuckling football in the Championship. It's been a different thing entirely for this Fulham side since they've come up, and they've got the poorest defensive record in the division. They've just lost at Huddersfield on Monday night by 1-0, and 1 goal flattered them, certainly coming into half-time. They made a better fist of it second half. But Liverpool at the minute, they look unsure, they look uncertain. It could be that Fulham at home is the best possible game for the Reds. I expect us to flip back and play a midfield 2 with then effectively 1-3 in front or 3-1, however you want to name it, however you want to think about it. We will need to be pretty responsible. Schürrle will want to be there. Vietto will want to be there looking to cause some trouble. Mitrovic will put himself about. Seri, Anguissa, Kearney's a clever little player. These lads, they all work hard. But what we've seen so far through this season is they can be got at. And I think the best way Liverpool can find their own mojo, if the manager thinks we're losing it, can get themselves playing, is to take Fulham on, take them on at the front foot, win the ball, get it into these lads' feet early, often. This is a Fulham side that will not be able to handle that if this season so far is anything to go by, no matter what back four they pick.